Look for the premiere of the movie Batman and Jesus, produced in collaboration with King's Tower Productions as part of Mythinformation Conference IV on September 30th, 2017. In audience for the Batman and Jesus movie premiere include Seth Andrews, creator and host of The Thinking Atheist, atheist celebrity Aaron Ra, Mythicist scholar Dr. Richard Carrier, Naked Mormonism podcast creator and host Bryce Blankenagel, CEO of Atheist Republic Allie Jackson, and a slew of other guests. The Mythinformation Conference will include the very exciting buzzed belief debate titled Islam in the Age of Trump between Asra Nomani and Faisal Saeed al-Mutar that will be moderated by Matt Dillahunty. The conference will also include a lineup of speakers such as London-based YouTube juggernaut Sargon of Akkad, also YouTube sensations Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head, and Global Humanist Secular Movement editor Melissa Chen. We will also be hosting a special VIP party where VIP ticket holders will be privy to a private presentation by Ron Miscavige, father of David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, on his experience with Scientology during and after his escape. To learn more or to purchase tickets for Mythinformation Conference IV, visit us at mythicistmilwaukee.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome to Mythinform with your hosts, Brian and Dimitri. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Thomas Smith, host of the popular podcast series Inquiries Only. Thomas also co-hosts the Opening Arguments podcast and is known for his work on Comedy Shoeshine and the Thomas and the Bible series. He was an esteemed guest at Mythcon 3, and we are very excited to have him in attendance at Mythcon 4, set for September 30th. Welcome, Thomas.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the new baby. We're guessing that you're not getting much sleep these days, but you could tell us if we're wrong.
Yeah, well, I thought I was, but I guess I'm waking up in the middle of the night because even though on paper I'm getting sleep, I've never been more tired. So it's fine.
Well, that's exactly the reason why Brian and I are still on the fence on this whole, baby thing.
Oh, you guys gonna have a baby together? I think you should.
How would that work out?
My thought is better late than pregnant at this point.
Would you be a disciplinarian? I would be the disciplinarian. You would give him candy.
Yeah, that'd be me.
Bitch.
Totally.
Yeah, but that doesn't even matter until right now it's just a little potato that does nothing and just needs a mom. There's nothing I can do.
There's nothing to get away with at this
point. You can't give your newborn a stern talking to or moral lessons or anything. It's just
Don't you read the 10 humanist commandments to them in their sleep? That's actually a good idea. I might start doing
They're
that.
learning. The brain is very plastic. That's great.
I know. Well, Thomas, I is super excited to have you here, and it's very timely. I know you're going to be speaking at Mythcon, which I know we're going to dive into in this podcast later on, and it's such an interesting time in the country where there seems to be a lot of kind of conflict, division, negativity, and it's interesting how it reflects on the atheism sphere, because there's diverging viewpoints whether atheism should be unified, whether there's different factions, and now we see kind of politics creeping into the atheist sphere. How do you see everything playing out, whether it's on online discussion or just in general in your personal life?
Yeah, I think it's weird. I don't know where you guys stand, but I don't really care or feel like I'm a part of a movement anymore because I just don't know how meaningful it is. When I see misogyny and other things like that as such a huge problem, and I won't say outright racism. There's some outright racism, but there's also just a lot of shrouded by academia type, cover for racist arguments and stuff that I find really problematic. And there's a lot of people trying to tone police social justice and say that a big movement right now is, hey, you guys on the social justice side are ruining the movement. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are saying, well, why are we ruining the movement? Why aren't you runing the movement? And
I wrote the atheist piece. Movement, right?
Yeah. Sorry, the atheist skeptic movement, whatever you want to call it. So I wrote a whole piece on how you don't get to just decide your side's right and then the other side's ruining it. And I think the same goes for me. So I don't really tell people that I don't like that they're ruining the atheist movement. I think that atheism really is going to, I mean, what do we all agree on? Well, there's no God, and we probably all agree on secularism, hopefully. But the funny thing is, like, you don't even have to be an atheist to be a secularist. You know, there's plenty of religious people who, realize that secularism is the right way to go, because they don't want to have any preference for any one religion. And so, like, already you're diluting your atheist movement. So I've started to wonder lately, and I don't know that I have the answer or anything, but I started to wonder, like, what is this atheist movement? Like, what are we doing? You know, we like to watch the old Hitch videos, or, a debate where someone gets schooled, and that's fun. But is that something to build a movement around? I don't know. I've kind of been searching for that answer lately, as I've been, I suppose, more. I've given more attention, and I've been more alarmed by the sort of the social justice cause. Like, I find that to be more important right now, given that Trump's in the White House and all the other stuff going on. So yeah, it's an interesting time for sure.
You think that was, so the Hitches of the world, they were the ones that started the ball rolling, and now we've kind of, it's coming back downhill, or whatever analogy you want to use. It's not rolling with the same speed, or maybe we have to build more than what, the beginning people in the movement have done. Does that kind of sum it up?
I just don't know what the movement is for. Like, there's a lot of people who, a lot of the people who talk about, like, oh, you're ruining the movement, or the movement needs to be this. I think what they mean is, like, they just want to be supported in their, whatever they're doing, their podcasts, their conventions, their whatever, which is fine. But I don't think, like, you guys are putting on a convention, and I'm interested in it. Like, I'm interested in going to it. That's cool. But there's the demand for, like, atheism in itself is a weird thing, like a lot of us. There's always going to be people coming out of religion. There's always, the country is so religious. There's always going to be people who, a year ago, a month ago, realized, like, oh shit, all this stuff I've been taught all my life is wrong. And they're going to have a strong desire for atheism as a product, like different podcasts, different conventions, different conferences, speeches, whatever. But for a lot of us who have been there for a while, I haven't been there since the beginning or anything, but I've been in atheism since like 2009 or something. So it's been a while. Pretty early on, it's like, okay, this question's pretty settled. Like, I'm kind of bored of it, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone who isn't. Like, it's interesting, debates are interesting, but for some of us, it's like, all right, this question about whether or not there's a God is pretty damn easy, to be honest. Like, it's just, and the people who
tell us
don't
more.
Get it pretty much just don't get it. And it got kind of boring to try to go down that argument every 5 seconds, with it to make no progress. So a lot of us are kind of like, well, what else are we doing around here? Like, what are we left with? And I don't know how much there is to revolve around that single question of whether or not there's a God. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that, I've been to a number of atheist conventions, right? The AA recently, Apostacon, obviously all of ours, and a handful of others like G2R. But things we're talking about foreign policy. People were talking about science. People were talking about critical thinking, how to improve your skepticism. How to stay rational, because I feel like as soon as you feel that you can't be manipulated because you've left religion, as soon as you can't be manipulated, you've put yourself in the position to be manipulated. So critical thinking are good too. So I think all of those were together, and most people tend to be liberal. Certainly there's libertarians. Even if you could, as long as you could laugh at a Republican joke, you could probably be Republican and have a good time there as well.
Yeah.
You're probably a moderate.
Is
Republican.
it heightened sensitivities? Is that what's maybe because there was something greater to, I'll put this in air quotes, fight before? It was seen as a unifying target, and now that's kind of fractured, and you have more and more people moving into secularism, and it's, you can call it maybe not a protected class anymore, if we want to use that jargon, then now we're starting to focus on different things, and we're starting to have heightened sensitivities. Yeah. Is that... Yeah.
Well, here's what's bothering me the most about it. What I saw in 2016 was a whole bunch of people engaging in both sides are bad, both sides are bad, both sides are bad, Okay. And this is within what, my audience and my circles, which is all atheists, but somehow they've decided that, like, left-wing politics is just as bad as right-wing politics. And it got to be so frustrating because the biggest threat, if your whole goal is secularism, the biggest threat to that is the right wing. I mean, we're seeing that now. Like the religious right wants to get rid of the Johnson Amendment, all this stuff that is a real threat to actual secularism. They want to police what you're doing in the bedroom. They want to roll back abortion rights. All this stuff that's based on religion. And the entire movement, it felt like to me, like much of the movement last year was fixated on both sides being bad and making some sort of false equivalence because there's some things they don't like on the far left. And it turned me off so much from what was happening because I just felt like we weren't keeping it in perspective, like regardless of individuals you don't like on the political left or people you think are too loud or whatever you think it is. Still, everybody should have been voting for Democrat over Republican because they're not trying to bring about religious, government and all this stuff. So I really feel like lost perspective last year, in my opinion, and it really frustrated me.
Maybe there's actually more Republican atheists out there. I gotta when you read Center, if you read the National Review or something like that, or Commentary magazine. I don't see religious arguments like when you read kind of center-right conservative stuff. You don't. I mean, sometimes you do, but you don't often see it. And I wonder if these people are all that religious. And I'm wondering if some of them are coming into atheism, and now you've got something that's more politically heterogeneous instead of more homogeneous as it used to be.
To me, I see it as a one-size-fits-all argument. Like you can either be in this camp or you can be in this camp, and there's no nuance. There's no room for nuance. Which I think maybe is not the case. Like if we take this last election, for example, there were a lot of people, and I was in this camp, that felt betrayed by the DNC. Now, granted, it was, there was a candidate on the other side that was less than desirable. Let's use that language. But it was the principle of the matter. Like, I don't think the institutions in this country are strong enough to survive for 4 years. Nothing is going to happen that's earth shattering. We're not going to have, and I know we're about
describing this as your current thought or something you were wrong about. I just want to clarify.
Is that what you were thinking about, like going to the election?
Yeah, this is what I was going into the polls, and people were like, you're going to throw your vote away when you write in Bernie, and I was like, no, you have to. At some point, you have to stand up to the DNC and be like, I'm not going to take this from you. You can't lead me around the nose and be like, okay, fine. Well, now I have to come back and still vote for the candidate that you made me choose. Or
how did they make you choose a candidate? The funniest thing about that argument to me was that, like, sure, you knew what was going on, but all the millions more people who voted for Hillary were too dumb to know what was going on. Like, it's a really weird argument. That somehow the DNC could make a bunch of people vote.
Oh no! That's And sorry, I should clarify. It was more so the stacking of the of the debate schedule. It was the email hacking. And this may be a conspiracy theory, but the alignment with major news sources to give her more press time over Bernie. So it was those. That was the rationale for stacking the deck in one direction, and. That was the mindset I had going into it, and now I know that the fear was, well, we're gonna have like Nazis, marching in the streets, right? And now we just had what happened 2 weeks ago.
God,
and so, which
I think what bothers me so much is that just the fallacies involved in this. Like, if you were somebody out there who just is right wing and likes conservative politics, then I don't begrudge you your vote. I want to argue with you, but you voted for Trump or whatever. What bothers me so much is it sounds like people like you who otherwise are liberal, it sounds like.
Right.
To me, it was such a blind spot to think that, oh, okay, it'll all work out. We'll be fine for 4 years. Like, no, we aren't going to be fine. There's.
Do you really think we're not going to be
Trump voters that said the same thing, that they really felt like that vote for Trump, he wouldn't get anything done, that it was really vote for the status quo. And they were worried what Hillary would do. That's what my Republican friends.
Okay, but they're wrong. I'm just with what's going on with North Korea, with the fact that we're with what might be going on in Afghanistan, although it sounds like that might not be as big of a deal yet. It ignores the problem with this point of view. In my mind, is that it comes from a place of privilege. And I'm sorry to use that word, but it comes from
you went there, Thomas. You went there.
It comes from not being a person of color suffering from Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions upping the drug war. So it comes from just being able to ignore that. It comes from being able to ignore what's happening to trans people in the military right now. I had someone on my show who might lose their job because of that.
Right.
Yeah. It comes from being able to ignore all these things that are happening because they don't affect you. So you can just say, well, we'll be fine for 4 years. Yeah, you will be. I'll be fine. I'll be absolutely fine for 4 years because I am a person of immense privilege. Like there's nothing Trump is going to do. It'll probably lower my taxes. Like I'll probably be better off because of Trump. And I have healthcare. That's another thing. Killing health. Think of the millions of people that were one vote away from losing healthcare, and it could come back. That could happen. So I'm sorry. That was something I fought really hard against in 2016. Was there's a bit of a blind spot to be able to say we'll be fine, and I want to prove a point with my write-in Bernie vote. Right. That by the way, your point was not taken. Nobody looked at the totals and said, see how we lost by 60,000 in a swing state? We need to do better with a DNC. Like nobody knows what that message is. They don't decode the message properly.
I would argue maybe that the Democrats had to look long and hard in the mirror after they lost to friggin' Trump and say, hey, maybe we should do something different in 2020. Maybe we should listen to some constituency. But I will say
how did they not listen to Hillary won by like millions of votes. It wasn't even close.
No, I know, but that's and I don't want it to be a circular argument of the fact that right. And so, had it been a level playing field, we don't know if it would have been by millions of votes and you had an impassioned voter base on one side versus we just don't want Trump to win essentially on the other side. And they thought potentially that she was more electable, but I want to come back to, and I'm going to play devil's advocate on this on the argument that you just posited, which is, so coming from a position of privilege, we should have gone to the polls with that in mind, right? Then I would challenge that with, if you and I can sit and we can chill for 4 years and nothing's really going to change, why did the black community have such a low voter turnout? If they were going to be the ones that were impacted the most and the people who essentially make up the base of the Democratic Party, so not the 12%, but whites and whoever else, had to pick up the slack and really go to the polls to be able to promote equality. That's kind of a weird... For me, I just wanted to hear what kind of the not justification, but your thoughts on that.
Well, a lot of what's going on with that. Now, there is some of that they weren't. Well, first off, they did support Hillary over Bernie. And so that's kind of part of where that comes from.
That was the Clinton name from the 90s. That was a big,
There's a lot of voter suppression efforts going on. It's not easy for people of color to vote. It's not easy for poor people to vote in this country. And that is absurd. I mean, the idea that we have to take time off work to go, it should be a holiday. It should be on a weekend. It should be as easy as possible to vote.
Completely
So that's
agree.
actually a big part of it. But I could turn the argument right around. Far, far more white people didn't, if their argument like yours was, the DNC, or Hillary's just as bad kind of thing. If that's your argument, why didn't you show up and vote Democrats into Congress? Because what should have happened is, if that's really what's going on, it should have been, okay, well, I hate Hillary. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to vote for Bernie or whatever. But I'm going to show up and vote Democrats into Congress, and then they'll be getting what should be very agreeable legislative goals done. You'd be protecting healthcare. You'd be protecting all these things that Republicans are trying to roll back, and that didn't happen.
I'm 100% on your page here, and I can only speak for myself. When I went to the poll, I was like, that's going to be my write-in, but everything else is going to be, let me do what's better for the country, and I did do that, but I don't know. I have no idea why let's call it the Bernie Revolution didn't cascade to the base, and they didn't come out in force for those congressional elections. That absolutely baffles me.
But if you're not coming from a place of privilege, though, and you're say the working class, right? Whether you're the white working class or the black working class, immigration could have been your issue, right? I mean, if you have. Yes, and we are not talking about immigration sensibly at all. And these people, if you're a low-skilled worker and there's going to be people that come in and possibly take your jobs. It's absolutely in your interest to kind of have a more anti-immigration policy or something like that. And I wonder if that's what tipped the votes, because it's that, and that's not just totally a white thing. That happens, and they're taking minority jobs in the minority community too. And there were more black people that voted for Trump than Romney.
Jobs. I don't like why do you think they're taking people's jobs? Well, I mean, when more people
they're competing, they'd be competing, right? And that could drive wages down. That would be
theoretically
about immigration, and I think you're right that a lot of people are concerned about that. I think it's just a mistaken concern. What's interesting to me about immigration is everyone's all for increasing the birth rate. Like they're happy when it's like, wow, we need to get more kids and we get more population. But all of a sudden, when there's people coming from another place, like no, we can't do that, because in general, increasing your population is good for your economy. Like just mathematically,
it is. But if you look at Brexit, like, and just kind of juxtapose this across the pond, a lot of that immigration that's coming in is even coming in from, that's not always Islamic immigration, but immigration from Eastern Europe, right? So they're still white. But if you are an unskilled worker and then you have more unskilled workers coming in, that dilutes the pool. Now there's more competition, drives wages down, the chance of you getting a job. These are people are going to vote for Brexit.
This is going to be, so I'm going to just real quick preview into what's going to happen at Mythcon 4, and we'll cover this a bit later, but we had Sargon on the show a few weeks ago, and he specifically talked about the whole immigration thing and Brexit. So it was a hot button topic for him. I'm super excited for you guys to unpack it.
So for those that don't know, Thomas is going to be interviewing Sargon of Akkad, which some people are billing as a debate because these two fine fellows.
Some people, meaning Brian,
because they're not on the same side, of the things, and that's why it's
debate, because I'm not really interested in a basic interview, because I strongly disagree with him on a lot of stuff.
Right.
So we'll see.
So that's why I'm kind of calling it a debate. But I think it'll be good for you guys to kind of get into the issues, because sometimes and wherever you are in this issue, a lot of times you're watching people. If you're watching Sargon, you're watching some of the related channels that are linked to Sargon on YouTube.
You're in your bubble.
If you're watching Thomas Smith, it's sometimes you're watching some of the other folks. You don't often listen to the other side. And I'm guilty of this too. I think we all are to some extent. So to have two people on stage at once, you really can't help but hear the other side and be challenged by it. And I think, especially where there overlap, where Thomas and Sargon will agree on a few things, I think that can met out of, wow, that's probably something that
I'm excited
is more
for
real
those
too.
areas
What do you
too.
think, Thomas? Do you think that there would be points of agreement, or do you think it's going to be kind of a lot of disagreement? What might we be able to tease out?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm in a tough position because I find Sargon to be more troll than substance. So like I would be happy to debate ideas, and there's a lot about his whole view of liberal politics that I would be happy to debate. But then I see the tactics he uses when he tells a British MP that he wouldn't even rape her, for example. It's not acceptable behavior in my mind. So it's hard to deal with someone who that's not an idea. It's like, I'm not going to, you just told a woman in power you wouldn't even rape her. Let's talk about the merits of that. Like it should be beyond the pale. And I don't know how to deal with that.
Well, I want to, one thing, and I don't excuse that, of course, because I don't think that's the proper thing. I would think, like, if I said something on the show at some point that was offensive, to me, it would if I repeatedly kept doing that, that would show that I have some sort of basis in that opinion. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly what I think. If you just slip up essentially and you say something stupid, now some people would say, well, you have to come back and you have to apologize for that. But there's some people who simply don't. I mean, that's not in their genetics to apologize for things. So they're like, they may think in the back of their mind, maybe that was probably stupid. I'm not going to do that again because there's a public outcry about it. Is that a decent enough answer to that? If hypothetically that's the case, or is that not acceptable?
I don't think you would find that to be what's going on with Sargon at all. But I mean, I don't blame if someone makes a mistake. I'm not going to hold him accountable forever for it. But
right.
It seems to be what he likes to do. There's a subculture, and it's a huge one online. That's keks and lulz. Like it's funny to say horrible things. It's funny to troll people, and I find it repulsive. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's good for society, and it's It's the kind of people who, I just read a book called let me find this. Oh yeah, Devil's Bargain, and it was about Steve Bannon and Trump. And Bannon it was very much a conscious, targeted campaign. It's interesting to hear he had experience with video games because he bought a company that was selling World of Warcraft gold or whatever.
Okay.
I played a tiny bit of World of Warcraft 10 years ago. I barely remember it, but it was some sort of gold farming company. And he bought it and he managed it for a while. And what happened was he was exposed to all these, it's tends to be young white men who play these video games and have so much vitriol and anger towards issues,
right?
That he learned, even though he lost millions on that company because there was a lawsuit and he wasn't allowed to. I forget the details, but he had to sell it and lost millions on it. But he kept in the back of his mind, Steve Bannon did, this mobilized, this group of people that he would be able to mobilize, and that was how he used that group to kind of target this Hillary smear campaign, which is part of, and it seeped into our popular culture. So like, even though Hillary, she's not perfect. She has some culpability in how she acted and like the shadiness in some of her dealings, but it was so blown out of proportion, and it was such a significant percentage of our of the public that it sort of seeped into. Even if it wasn't outright conspiracy theories, it sort of affected all of us, where we just assumed she's this horrible, awful liar or something like that. When really she's a politician. She lies less than any other politician that was running.
You think gamers had that much of an influence on the election? I mean, gamers. It sounds like we're talking about gamers.
Yeah, I am talking about gamers because it's that subculture of keks and lulz of it's that alt-right kind of. I don't know.
Are you going to define that as alt-right? I guess. Alt-right? Yeah. No. The way I define alt-right and the way I think it's defined regularly is you believe that you need a white majority in the country to steward Western liberal democracy. Like either a completely white nation or a white majority,
right?
Well, yeah, but that's what the alt-right is. I mean, the alt-right was coined by Milo, but it's changed.
Like some people are defining it.
Right.
Go ahead, sorry.
But it's changed. I mean, remember who the person that came up with like alt-right and defined themselves is Spencer.
Wasn't it Steve Bannon?
No, it's Spencer.
It was Bannon.
It was
Spencer. Bannon said that Breitbart was a haven for the alt-right, right?
Right, but alt-right has to be coined as a term before you
someone
can do
used
that.
It first.
Yeah, certainly Bannon was flirting with it. Even Milo used the term, but if you ask Milo later, that it's changed. So alt-right now it means white nationalist. You do need to be
right.
You have to be racist.
I mean, that's a weird. I don't know why we would define a new term to be an old term. Is there a reason we would do that? Like,
no. I don't know that because we had the term Tea Partier. No one uses it anymore. Who are the
Tea Party kind of died.
But their principles are alive in some of these alt-right people, but now alt-right has morphed into this. Because I agree with Brian on this.
Well, but the Tea Party and the alt-right I think are quite different. The Tea Party was, I think, more religiously motivated, and the alt-right isn't. I thought
it was.
The alt-right is a populist movement. Yeah, and the Tea Party is kind of an ultra-conservative movement. But this is not. It's not the same. I mean, the people who led the Tea Party were what Michelle Bachmann.
Michelle Bachmann. Oh, God.
I mean, it was more of a religious thing than this movement. It's a different movement, I think.
No, it totally isn't. But the term alt-right, I mean, it really does mean that you believe in some sort of superiority of whiteness, which is by definition racist. So I think it's really important not to smear garden variety conservatives this way, or else we are really looking for bad times.
I mean, I don't. Okay, if you think that's the more operative definition, that's fine. I'm not sure. I'll go with that, but I wasn't really using it in the same way. I just mean the segment of the right that is so callous in the way they engage online, that is not afraid to say horrible things just for the sake of saying horrible things, like because they think it's funny. Like it's not. So that, I mean, that's how I think of it more. But maybe you're right on the definition. So I don't want to. I won't sit here and tell you that Sargon is alt-right. I just wasn't sure if he identified that way or not. But so that's fine. I can take that back. That's okay.
In fact, he actually got booted off Twitter actually for harassing the alt-right.
Yeah.
That was actually the reason. So yeah, he's critical of identity politics as a whole, which is another kind of amorphous term. But the right, certainly the alt-right, they are all about identity politics. They just play it in an unusual direction.
White identity politics.
Yeah, it's white identity politics, no doubt. In fact, I think identity politics is one of the weird things. I think it gets used in the wrong way. I think it's the problem here. What I see, and if I would criticize identity politics, is when you force an identification. Like if I want to identify as an engineer or an atheist or a bridge player, I can do that. But don't make me identify as white if I don't want to. And that would go for anyone's race. If you want to identify as a woman or a man, you get to pick your labels. Other people don't get to pick your labels for you. I think that is kind of the crux of people that say, I'm mad about identity politics. What do you think about that?
I have found it to be just an excuse to ignore the goals of groups like Black Lives Matter. I just did an episode on this, and you guys can feel free to give me a better argument if you have one, but there's a straw man, and there's a version of identity politics that I think we all can agree is bad, which is if someone says, I'm a whatever, I'm an X, I'm a black woman or something, and therefore I'm right and you're wrong without an argument. Well, sure. Like no one's going to be convinced that way because you haven't given an argument. You've just said what you are and what I am or something.
Right. That you don't have any more. Yeah, we would agree. Go on.
We can all agree that's bad. But I think what the problem is, people like Sam Harris said, I'm in disbelief about this because I've always been such a fan. In his latest episode, as of us recording this, said that Black Lives Matter is obviously destructive to civil society. And just making claims like that without backing them up at all under the guise of its identity politics. And what I think we're doing is we're taking this straw man of, which I just laid out, which we'd all agree is bad. And then somehow the leap is being made to like, well, therefore you can't talk about race or identify race or circle under the banner of Black Lives Matter because that's identity politics. But what Black Lives Matter is identifying a bunch of issues that are targeting black people in this society, that black people are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white men, that, the same drug crimes, black men get longer sentences. They're more imprisoned for it's completely disproportionate. The police killings was certainly the most visceral, visual component of it, but that's not all of Black Lives Matter. And somehow we're taking that straw man of identity politics to dismiss all those concerns, which are backed by data. They're backed by data and arguments. They're not backed by, I'm black, so I know better. It's the way identity plays into it, which is important, is if you are in a level of privilege to where you've never had to deal with this, you just don't know about it. And like, it's not, if you don't go out of your way to find out about it, and it's not your fault. Like, it doesn't mean, like, I would not have known if I hadn't talked to black people, if I hadn't read books, if I hadn't, gone out of my way, I would not know how much more black people get pulled over than I do. I've been pulled over a couple times in my life, and it wasn't a big deal. Like, there's just things you don't know about because you have a certain experience in our society. It doesn't mean you're an evil person. And I think there's a lot of white sensitivity about this. Like, somehow it means that you're evil or you're racist. And oftentimes, I think there are a lot of people who throw around the term racist too much.
Yes.
But you can't just ignore the entire movement because some people use words you don't like sometimes. Like, the movement is important. Black Lives Matter is important, in my view.
I would agree. And I'm going to take a stab at potentially trying to answer the question of how it could be perceived. And I can do it through the lens of interacting with my family, who tends to have vastly different thoughts on this. Yeah. So I think that there are cases that polarize, and people tend to focus on the polarizing. We'll take people who tend to be liberals, but then are anti-social justice, because they view social justice as like a polarizing fringe, and so they'll take things like an anti-free speech right now. So there's free speech apparently now has a negative connotation on social media and online right now, which baffles me. And that has been driven by, I would say, far left arguments. And so you've got like family members who are saying, I can't believe we've come to a point in this country where we're denigrating free speech, and that is driving them way farther right than they probably are. Because I would say that they were likely centrist at heart, but they're not anymore. They were definitely driven into the Trump camp with everything that happened before the election, and so it's tough. I would say that it's the polarization aspect in the example that you gave with the Black Lives Matter movement, which I would agree has a lot of good tenets about it. But if someone stands up and says, "You need to listen to me. I'm a black woman. I've been oppressed for however many years, and that is my credentials. That's it." I would say that situation polarizes the good parts of the movement, and that's where we can't agree in the middle. I don't know.
I don't think the middle is always right. I think that's a fallacy. But I also notice where you're putting agency and where you're putting moral blame. So you're not holding people accountable who stuck with Trump, despite the fact that there's KKK members on his side. So you could equally make an argument like, you've got David Duke backing Trump and Trump not calling him out. Okay, that should scare you away from somebody. But no, you're saying it's incumbent upon the left to be better because, because that's driving people into Trump. So I just want to know where putting the
just real quick,
there.
not 100%, but I think there's a measure of self-policing that has to happen that people tend to avoid because they're like, well, the alternative is the worst. So we shouldn't self-police.
Self-police. What do you mean?
So self-policing our own arguments. Like if someone is extremist in, say, denying free speech, for example, or saying you shouldn't even open your mouth because I perceive what you're saying is not exactly in line with my values, so you must be an alt-righter. That's an extremist argument, but that's like how I would classify Antifa and some of these other organizations. I would say that's polarizing. And we should self-police against some movements who think that that's okay.
In order to win, is that what you mean? In order to win,
in order to create unity, because we're not going to get anything done if we're polarized. We have to somehow meet, and I know, Thomas, you might not, like the centrist argument where we kind of have to meet in the middle, and something is better than nothing. I would say that.
What's the middle centrist view on taxation, healthcare, abortion? Like that's what's important to me.
Right.
What is the centrist view on those issues? And then I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm left on those issues. And the people who are for affordable healthcare, for universal healthcare, are for progressive taxation, are for all this stuff, they're Democrats. Let's vote Democrat. Like that's what matters.
You'd get a lot of Republicans there, though. I know a ton of Republicans are absolutely fine with universal healthcare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not the conservative wing is Republican.
But when we're talking voting, I think you're right about that but it's only because Trump bucked the actual Republican trend.
True.
So Trump did a weird thing because he doesn't know anything about it. He's just an outsider where he just lied about what he wanted to do with healthcare and sold people on something that was Obamacare except 10 times more expensive and better. Like if what Trump sold us on for healthcare was possible, I would vote for it in a heartbeat. But he sold us on something that's simply not possible, which is it's going to cost less. It's going to cover everybody. And it's going to be even better than premiums are going to be lower than Obamacare.
With
and
no
then they tried to
details.
legislate that.
I don't think it was just Trump, though. I mean, there's been populists in the country for a long time. I mean, Ross Perot got 19% of the vote or so, in 1992.
That was the last guy, 92. That's been a long time.
But still, that's significant population.
Are you saying he campaigned on healthcare, or what do you mean?
What I mean is that people that will get outside, that they're not everybody on the right is a conservative. I honestly think that
I agree, but I think what's going on the right, unfortunately, is that the ultra conservative Freedom Caucus has a stranglehold on it. So they're holding, and they're backed by big money donors who fund different media campaigns and to get people on their side. But I think you're right that a lot of Republican citizens, a lot of Republican citizens are probably pro universal healthcare at this point, but their leadership isn't. And so if we're talking about voting, which is where this all matters, vote Democrat if you want that. I mean,
right. But that's the point of making the message about policy and not identity. I think that had it been there, maybe I'm wrong.
No, there's this culture war being fought online, but it doesn't exist in congressional races. Go look at your congressmen. They're not fighting an identity politics war. This is this online debate. That's all it is. It's like an online and occasionally like a campus protest debate, but nobody runs on that. There's not a lot of, find me a Democratic candidate who's running on that in congressional.
No, I agree.
rate.
I agree, Thomas. But in sales, often like perception is reality. So if they perceive your product to be, that it's not well built, then it's not well built. Even if it actually is.
Brian, can you bring that back?
Yes, there's a lot of the meme wars and of the social justice versus anti-social justice online. These people tend to be younger, say 40 and under, right? The folks that are older than this don't know anything about 4chan. They don't know anything about Sargon of Akkad. Mm-hmm. These are, but they talk about it in terms of like, yeah, it's getting a little too politically correct and things, but it filters up, and it's that perception that it makes it all about what people perceive to be identity politics instead of the issues. And I feel like,
but you know what? Is that perception driven by the media that they are able to consume? Because
it's driven by Fox News narrative.
And yes, 100%. I mean, most people that I know, I'm like, I'll come in and I'm like, oh, you've got Fox News on. Okay, great. Which is problematic. But then there's people like Ben Shapiro, for example, who I respect some of his views. I completely don't agree with him on other of his views. And it's tough because I'll see articles that he has that will take a small subset of what I would call regressive leftism. He'll take a story, he'll bring that up to the surface, and he has a very large readership.
Yeah.
So people read it, again, like my family members, who I am convinced are probably center-right, and then they're like, are you kidding me? Look at what the leftists are doing. And I'm constantly like, well, I think that they're a fringe. Most of us are like left center and, really don't focus on these articles, but people do. And that's, I think, maybe what you're talking about is they percolate up.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Thomas?
Well, I think there's always resistance to moral progress, like to social progress. There's always resistance. I mean, all of everything we've just said. I just watched that documentary or the series on the 60s, and a lot of those movements. Every argument you hear right now is exactly the same as it was then. Mm-hmm. Law and order, people aren't respecting, like we need to restore law and order. These protesters are getting out of hand. Every argument that you're hearing, they said the exact same things. Nixon ran on that bullshit in the 60s to going against civil rights. Like they said the same exact things. Mm-hmm. And there's always going to be that resistance. And what I always say is, especially if you're a centrist-minded person, is, okay, you think there's crazies on the left. I agree with you. I think there are stupid people on any side of any issue. Like I really do. I can always find people where I think, wow, that argument is terrible, even though it's the conclusion is something I agree with. Mm-hmm. I can find you plenty of crazies on the right to balance that out. Like more. I think there are more harmful, ignorant people on the right. And so I just let those people cancel out. And then what we're left is how do you feel about policy and who do you want leading the country? And I want Democrats leading the country. I want Democrats not taking away our health care. It's so simple to me. And I think there's all these attempts to make it more than it is, or to focus on what, and I don't know where it comes from. Like, because there's so much focus put on what the left can do better to not make the right be Nazis. Yes. And it's just like, why can't the right just not be Nazis and not support a horrible candidate? I don't know. It's a weird. People are very selective with who they hold accountable for stuff.
Right, and I guess myself and you talk a lot about admitting your biases, which I like. And I feel I do have a libertarian bias. I think we've tested for that in our group. We all kind of took our political compass test. And
did we?
Yeah, well, we did. Well, you were supposed to. Anyways, I just don't think it helps much when you say that the KKK voted for Trump, therefore you can't vote for it, because they're crazy people.
I'm not saying therefore you can't vote for it. I offered that as a counter to when you said, oh, when they see what's going on the left, they can't support the left. And I'm saying, well, then why wouldn't that same argument apply when the KKK supports Trump?
But that's the thing. I don't like either argument. I don't, when they're right now, I've seen things, going around Facebook. Wow, the Nazis just aren't this small group. They're your father, they're your brother, they're your cousin, they're in your closet, kind of. This is ridiculous, right? There's about 15,000 white nationalists out there, right? They suck.
Well, we
need to marginalize
a poll
them.
That showed 9% support for white nationalist views in the country.
Yeah, so but I'd have to see that. I mean, people, right?
Yeah.
How do you word it? But right, how do you word it? But
or who they interviewed. Whatever. I mean,
there are statistical methods to to make sure it's a representative sample. It was a real poll.
Yeah, no, if it was legitimate, yeah, I've never met
9%. There should have been enough people from Charlottesville, Virginia alone to come there. These people are coming from all over the country, which tells me that
I said support for the views. I think that's a whole different, that's a whole different category of people than people who are willing to go show their face and march with Nazi flags. I'm not saying 9% of people are that. I'm saying 9% of people have sympathy and I think it was agree with white nationalist views. I'll have to dig up the poll.
Do you know exactly the question they asked? Because if it was like,
we'll post it.
Yeah, because if it was like white people are awesome, vote yes or no. Well, I'm being facetious here, but like I would say yes. I wouldn't say no.
There's this obsession with outright bigotry. That is the obsession, and this is something that I think I've learned recently with some of the books I've read and the people I've talked to.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think Sargon focuses on a lot. Carl Benjamin, I think is his real name, right? I think Carl focuses on that a lot, and I think a lot of people on the right do. They want to be shown, like, tell me where these words are outright bigotry, or else everything's fine. And a lot of people on the social justice side are saying, no, it's not. Outright bigotry has gotten way better. I think that there's, despite this poll for 9% of people sympathetic to white nationalist views, I do think outright bigotry is something our society just doesn't accept, and does ostracize those who show it. But implicit bigotry and systemic racism are fine. They're things that we don't have a good mechanism for fixing them. Things like mass incarceration, things like the drug war.
And I think that a lot of it is the conversation. I listened to your podcast recently where you had, God, his name is just slipping my
Alex Jules?
Yes, Alex Jules. And you were talking about that it's not this overt bigotry, but there's pockets. And I have often thought that this is probably regional, and that there's certain things when you redact for crime and you redact for police coverage that, there's still, after you control for all the metrics, you still are getting more black people arrested, and that it's not necessarily set out to be racist, but it could possibly be an issue. Then why don't we address it? I almost feel like this is just a sales problem.
Trying to do.
Yeah, but I almost feel like it's a sales problem. If it was packaged in a different way, everyone would be like, yeah, we've got to do.
But it depends on what you focus on. If Black Lives Matter focuses mostly, I would say, on things that are important. But when we start getting into things like implicit bias, I think we're going to have implicit bias until the sun blows up. It's never going to go away. You just,
studies show that if you're more aware of it, it actually gets better.
Right.
The worst thing you can do for implicit bias is think you don't have it. The tests show that people who don't think they're biased are the most biased.
I will 100%
Being
agree
aware
with
of it is a big
because I'm sure I have implicit bias, but I also grew up in a community that was X, Y, and Z, and so I'm sure no matter if I know my biases, I'm still gonna, like, once I glance at someone, I'm gonna have a thought that goes through my mind. I can be intelligent enough to realize that it happened and avoid it, but that's always gonna happen. I think for a lot of people.
But either way, do you feel like with Mythcon, what we're trying to do is encourage debate. We're trying to, like, instead of saying don't be closed-minded, we're asking people to be open-minded, and talk to those that don't agree with you more so than the ones that do. Have conversations. So the fact that you've got the human component and we're there, Thomas Smith is up there with Sargon. Do you feel, Thomas, that that reasoned debate can help? Do you feel that will de-escalate tensions overall if we do talk about things like this?
Yeah, I do appreciate that goal, and I do respect what you guys are trying to do. I think it's a good effort to, it's far better than merely having one side, having the Sargon conference or having. But then again, aren't there another couple YouTube anti-feminists that are doing a whole presentation that's not being challenged?
They're doing like a discussion panel.
What they're talking about, and I don't know if Shu, and we're talking about Armored Skeptic and Shu Unhead, and I'm not sure if they would classify themselves as anti-feminists. That's another debate on a label. But what they are talking about is social media, and they're talking about how social media is sort of devolved. It's going to be a really interesting look at how social media has changed, how interactions on social media, have changed, and maybe for the worse. It's going to be an interesting, an objective conversation. Actually, feminism probably isn't going to come up unless they're talking about specifically how attacks are going on. It's not going to be a talk supporting kind of one side.
As I understand it, it's supposed to be audience interaction in that, and to have essentially more of what you're going to do with Sargon, so a little more of that. So I think it would be fantastic. I mean, I assume you'll be in the audience, and we can maybe even engage even more there and have that meaningful dialogue.
And one of the reasons that they definitely wanted to reach out to Francesca Ramsey, who is, I'm not sure if you or Thomas or the audience knows, but she's kind of the host of MTV's Decoded. And they wanted to have a dialogue with her. That didn't work out. And I thought, okay, this is the place for dialogue, because what really we feel, the atheist community has got a lot of tension that I think we can talk about. Maybe, like you said, Thomas, is it going to get resolved? I don't know, but what I do know is we can talk about it, and I think we're a microcosm for the America, and we can de-escalate there.
Yeah, I respect that, because there's a lot of what I've railed against on my show is the people who are saying the left won't talk to anybody, and they're doing the same thing for their echo chamber. Mm-hmm. People like Dave Rubin, who is just at this point a mouthpiece for Trump. I mean, that's what he tweets. It's insane. Stuff like that, I think, is far worse. I'm glad that you guys are trying to have a dialogue. I think that's good. I have my feelings about Sargon and what the kind of behavior he engages in, but it is. I see where you're coming from with having a battle of ideas, and I respect that. I think it's better than being in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Right? So
could it be like a de-escalator where you're so fed up with what you could perceive as fringe movements, and you're like, oh, finally someone's just gonna bitch for 20 minutes about it, and I'm just gonna watch it and I'm gonna have fun, kind of like Real Housewives or whatever it is.
Real Housewives.
I mean, it could be like the Real Housewives of the left commentary. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's if that's what people are doing, but I think what they're doing is actually engaging in harassment campaigns. I mean, he's leading harassment campaigns against people.
Dimitri's going to have to work on the comedy, right? You're not going to get on comedy shoestring or wait, comedy.
I don't know. I think it was more entertaining. I don't think people watch that and go, all right, I'm going to go, I don't know, harass a feminist or something. Unless that actually
is what's happening.
And you mentioned that there's like a campaign or something. I don't know if I've heard of that or anything in specific.
Well, okay. I mean, that's fine, but I mean, it's we can look it up after the show. But
right.
He's led. He did. He and a bunch of other people of his views went and sat in the front row of a presentation by what's her name, the Gamergate.
Anita, right? Although I don't.
It's Sarkeesian. It's stuff like that. I mean, it's
right. But I guess I've seen.
I'm saying is it's not people going for entertainment and then I'm done with that. I'm not. It's a bunch of people who are acting on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
Right. I guess I've seen both sides. I don't really want to. That people can kind of think what they want sometimes on who's who. Right, like there's been political figures throughout the time that are polarized, and the LBJ was supposed to be not like really a nice person, yet has did a lot for civil rights. So, I don't want to like focus so much on that, but it's ideas, right? And I think that there's a lot of people that there's certain ideas that Sargon has that they like. There's certain same way with you there And rather than talking about, God, is Thomas Smith the best person in the world, or Sargon, or who's better, but rather whose ideas are better and when and where.
Well, the other thing is who's going to bring us into the center. And I think you have amazing content, Thomas, but is a right winger going to tune into your show necessarily and get educated on liberal values? But they might tune into his show, maybe, and maybe he'll drag them toward the center. So maybe that's like a pipe dream of mine, but I'm hoping that is maybe happening. I don't know.
I don't know. I think when you're using all the same rhetoric that the left uses, that the right uses to paint the left as horrible, I don't know how that could drag you to the middle. I think what that does is it further emboldens the right, because look at this guy. He used to be on the left, like they do with that's Rubin's whole Dave Rubin's whole reason for being is I used to be on the left, but now I'm, it's that kind of thing.
That was that monologue that he gave. Yeah.
But just because you watch somebody regularly, you could only agree with 10% of what they say. You don't necessarily buy into all of it, and that's why I think
maybe
right that hearing it all and seeing people next to you though.
But there are some people that, but hold on, there are some things that are beyond the pale. I'm not gonna. Like you just offered, do people think I'm the best person? You're right. People cannot like me as a person, but what they can't do is find instances of me harassing people, making rape threats or making rape jokes or joking at the death of a feminist. I mean, they're not going to find that. I'm not going to do that, even for the other side. I don't,
No, and you have an incredibly professional way about you and your material, which is phenomenal. So I would call that for who you're going to be talking to. Maybe it could be a slip up. I don't know, but I don't know that it's as damaging as maybe some media or sources make it out to be. But I'm excited for you guys to unpack all of these things. It's going to be, I cannot tell you how excited I am to hear some of the answers that he'll give to your questions.
Right. And I think, that this is this is just a good thing. And I really think that I hope I didn't insult you, Thomas. I didn't mean to. I just think your ideas need to be heard. I think his do. And what I really hope is like the audience members, and they're looking to each other, maybe nodding together, and then they look at each other and goes, I'm a Thomas Smith fan. And somebody goes, well, I'm a Sargon fan. And they realize that they're not, wow, you're not a bad person. Maybe you disagree. It's okay to disagree sanely. And also think that that person's an okay person, even if you share no views. Or learn a little bit more. Oh, I thought you thought this. Maybe just de-escalate your own thoughts about that other side.
Brian, let me sum up what you're trying to say. The after party is going to be stupid. It's just going to be... I don't even know.
There's those comedy chops.
Good job. Well done. Well done. And Thomas Smith, you're also going to be at that after party. So if you're a Thomas Smith fan out there, definitely attend. If you're not, I encourage you to talk to him because all of us need to get out of our bubbles. He's a nice guy. You can approach him, and I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you.
Well, yeah, and we had not even dived into we kind of talked about your podcast a little bit, but can you tell us about, maybe some of the, either your recent guests or who you're about to have on, what you're excited about with your material? Because it's truly good work. It's very professional.
Thank you very much. I apologize for this, but there's one thing I kept meaning to say over and over, and we kept branching off. Just a quick note on something you said about free speech, if you don't mind. There's a study I often reference that shows that free speech is often used as the argument by racists. So I don't mean to say that everybody who's in favor of free speech is racist. That's not what I'm saying, because I'm a strong.
Thanks.
I call myself a free speech activist as well. Like I'm firm believer in the First Amendment in this country. But when they did a survey, and what they found was racists often use the First Amendment and free speech as a defense because they know their views are unpalatable to people. So that's how they defend it. And then you ask those same people about what about speech against the police or against the police sensitivity is one thing, like authoritarianism. They say, well, what if someone says something bad about the police or the president? And then they'll say, well, no, that shouldn't be allowed. And it's like the same people who are using free speech a minute ago don't believe in it when the question is different. And that's something I want to point out because it's not a left-wing problem. It's honestly a problem that happens on both sides.
Yeah. I think free speech is always under attack. It's just who the attackers are at the given time. That's true.
Why I firmly support the ACLU, because I think they defend it on both sides.
Oh yeah, well they were big. I mean, they denounced the the Charlottesville, but like the counter protest immediately. So I was, because that turned a little violent. So yeah, big praise, a lot of marks for the ACLU.
But, and finally, that was something that was so disappointing about our community is Dave Rubin tweeted that we should defund the ACLU because they wrote a profile about Linda Sarsour. And Sam Harris retweeted that and endorsed that message. So the sensitivity, what kind of triggering are we talking about there? That's such a snowflake thing to do, to want to defund an entire First Amendment defending, ACLU with just decades of histories of good work. Defund them because they wrote a profile on Linda Sarsour. It's absurd.
The tensions are high. it's obvious.
CNN reported it.
Yeah, tensions are high, and they were high before Charlottesville. Right. I mean, you could feel them. I think everybody's in agreement there. Charlottesville, I don't know.
It was a powder keg.
Geez, yeah. And I think now more than ever, like that's what the Mythcon aims to do. It's also going to be a lot of fun. Thomas, we can't wait to see you there. I think this is going to be good. A good talk with Sargon. It's not, you guys obviously aren't agreeing on everything, but I think that's what people need to hear. And we've got our Skeptics Pledge out there to, be open-minded and to, engage the other side in an honest way. And I think that's what's going to happen. So.
Yeah. Anyone out there who hasn't, there is an actual thing on iPetition called the Skeptics Pledge. If you look for it, it's like a very innocuous type of, 3, 4, however many points that we're going to be able to get out there and have people, support. So we are looking forward to everyone attending. We're looking forward to promoting your content when you get here, and we're looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, me too. I can talk about my podcast, or if you want to wrap it, that's fine too. I don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. So you used to have a podcast that was atheistically speaking, but you transferred it over and kind of shifted to Serious Inquiries Only. Give us a summary of Serious Inquiries Only.
Sure. I mean, I had long not really liked the name Atheistically Speaking because I came up with it just on a whim. I'm not very good at naming things.
It is very clever. I actually really like it.
Atheistically Speaking?
Yeah, if you want there's some positive feedback for you for the thing that you did not like.
that I don't do anymore. And what I found to be a problem was that so many people just wouldn't come on the show because it had the name the word atheist in it.
Oh, right.
And I think that's a problem, and I'm not. A lot of people were, or not a lot of people actually, like one person was upset that I was kind of giving in to the fact that there's a stigma against atheists. And I agree, but my show was never really that much of an atheist show to begin with. And like, I've wanted to do other stuff and just talk about science and just politics and anything, anything I find interesting. And I didn't want to be held back anymore when I try to get someone who's written a really cool book on, and they're like, what's this atheist? Like, I just don't want to, they just don't want to come on. And so I renamed it Serious Inquiries Only, which I thought was a nice little play on words. Occasionally, like once or twice a month, I'll get someone posting like an ad for something on my page, thinking it's like some sort of sales thing. It's kind of funny. But no, I'm just trying to talk about, I'm trying to interview people I think are interesting. I'm trying to, I go far and wide, just anything I see. And, one interview I don't know that's going to happen, so this is kind of a dumb sales pitch, but just to give you an idea of where I'm trying to do lately, there's an organization that specializes in de-radicalizing Klan members and white nationalists. And I really want to interview someone from that.
Like a therapy group?
That's a good idea. Because what are we going to do with already radicalized nationalists? They can't be part of the main political discussion. But something
how do you de-radicalize?
Yeah, that would be awesome, Thomas.
I know it's stuff like that. I mean, I really do want to talk about interesting issues, and I was trying to debate people I disagree with. I still do, and it's funny because believe it or not, there's a lot of people on the far left that I strongly disagree with, and I've debated Dan
where
Errol
you're to the right of them. Yes,
yeah.
I've
Dan Errol or Michael A. Wood Jr. are two recent ones where I was debating from essentially the right of them. Which is interesting. But yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find, I don't really do a news show, but like on Thursday, my Thursday episode is usually commentary about whatever I think it needs to be said in that time. And then my Monday is an interview episode. So twice a week, and same goes with Opening Arguments is twice a week, although, and actually, no.
And you host that. Tell us about Opening Arguments. So you're a co-host there.
So, Opening Arguments is with my friend Andrew Torres, who's a brilliant lawyer, who he wrote me an email one day or a Facebook message, like I guess it would be now over a year ago, explaining like a very fine legal point, like a fine legal distinction that I didn't understand from one of my episodes. And I very quickly just thought, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I don't, like this guy, when it comes to, he talked about the penumbra of the law, for the right to privacy. And that's where, You know, that's where the Roe v. Wade kind of comes from. Stuff like that. I was like, oh, I don't know anything about this. So I started having him on my show, and we did a whole series on the Second Amendment and kind of the history there. And he talked about Scalia when he died, how he was actually more of an activist judge, even though the conservatives think it's the opposite. Stuff like that I found so fascinating, and other people did too. And so they wanted us to start a podcast, and we did, and it's been an absolute hit. And I'm happy to say it's good because it's more him than me, so I get to praise this one more.
That's awesome.
But you focus on really issues where you really a lawyer's opinion's really needed.
Sorry, I missed it.
So on opening arguments, you focus on issues where a lawyer's opinion is really needed.
Well, exactly. The timing could not have been better for us, because in the wake of the disaster of Trump being elected, there was 100 legal questions a day. And you know what? There's a lot of fake news on the left. There's more on the right, but there's a lot of fake news on the left. There's a lot of,
that's true.
You know, this one weird trick can put Bernie in the presidency or whatever. You know?
I saw those.
Yeah.
Wait, tell me more.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, people, I think that there may be nobody in terms of my circles and the kind of podcasts that are, you know, my friends I talk to, there may be nobody doing more to get out good, accurate information than Andrew Torres, in my opinion. Like it's really helping me form my opinions. And I know a lot of other people feel that way too. So I'm really proud to be any small part of it. And I am just a small part of that show. It really is. He's the brains behind it, and I'm just along for the ride. So, but that one, there's so much good information. There's everybody and their brother has a legal question about something, and we try to pick the ones that are going to be the most interesting to everybody. So.
Right. I think both of those are on iTunes. I know that sometimes I'm a dinosaur, so I just go to Safari and go to SeriousPod.com if I want to look at it that way. And I suppose there's a website for opening arguments. But
yeah, it should be openargs.com.
Okay. Very good. So Thomas Smith, check him out there, either at Serious Inquiries Only or Opening Arguments. If you want, check out Thomas in the Bible, because there's some good stuff there to see. Thanks, Thomas Smith. We really look forward to seeing you at September 30th, the whole day for Saturday. Get your tickets now if you're listening. This is really going to be an epic conference. We have this debate. We have Faisal Al-Mukhtar and Azra Mani debating. We have Shuaned and Armored talking about social media. Melissa Chen talking about Enlightenment values. And we follow with a movie, Batman and Jesus, where we juxtapose the lore of Batman to the lore of Jesus. Wow, it's kind of similar. A whole host of people are going to be in there. Matt Dillahunty is going to be there. Seth Andrews, Arn Ra, and others. It's going to be a great time, plus an after party.
And it's all going to be on the beautiful shores of Milwaukee.
We are teasing our producer here.
It's a great intro, but we'll see what we'll do with it.
Most people don't know we have shores.
I'm excited to be there. I really appreciate the invitation. It is going to be, it will be interesting. It will be interesting.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everybody there.
All right. Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you for listening to Mythinformed. Mythinformed is brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee. Producers Sean Frasick. Associate producers Fritz Blondone and Kristen Whitaker Hood. Engineer Josh Benishek. Technical consultant Jason Lawson. And hosts Brian, Dimitri, Jacob, and Joseph. Every week we produce a new podcast that sheds light on religion, secularism, and mythology. If you enjoy this show, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/mythicist. Mythicist Milwaukee also brings major secular conferences and debates to the Milwaukee area, along with community events, both local and online. To support us in bringing future events, become a member at mythicistmilwaukee.com to receive member-only benefits. You can also visit mythicistmilwaukee.com and hit the donate button located at the bottom of each page to place a financial donation amount of your choice. And now, the closing theme, written and performed by Shelley Siegel.
Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath. Isis of fertility, and ether of Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will be the next to die? There was a time when everyone believed Helios in the sun, Poseidon in the sea, Athena's wisdom and beauty, and Hades underneath, Isis of fertility, and ether of the Greeks. They all lie at rest, and who will be the next to die? You know they are all myths, and who will be the next?